Hello again, everyone. It's still June 7. I'm still Dwight Schmuck. This is part 2 of today's Schmuck Look. And I'm going to call this one Pin Drop. It was an email sent to me by my sister-in-law from Pennsylvania. And, there's an awful lot that our leaders do in our name, I should say, or I do say, that really ticks off a lot of people for justifiable reasons. On the other hand, besides having 4 fingers and a thumb, a lot of the world really does forget all the good things that we do. And this is about some of those and why I'm proud to be an American. These thoughts tell us how the rest of the world thinks about us. When in England, at a fairly large conference, Colin Powell was asked by the Archbishop of Canterbury if our plans for Iraq were just an example of empire building by George Bush. He answered by saying, over the years, the United States has sent many of its fine young men and women into great peril to fight for freedom beyond our borders. The only amount of land we have ever asked for in return is enough to bury those that did not return. And you could have heard a pin drop. And don't mind me, I got emotional yesterday when I tried to do this, and obviously I'm going to get emotional again. But damn it, it is true. There was a 20 conference in France where a member of international engineers were taking part, including French and American. During a break, one of the French engineers came back into the room saying, "Have you heard about the latest dumb stunt Bush has done? He sent an aircraft carrier to Indonesia to help the tsunami victims. What does he intend to do? Bomb them?" A Boeing engineer stood up and replied quietly, "Our carriers have 3 hospitals on board. They can treat several hundred people. They are nuclear powered and can supply emergency electrical power to shore facilities. They have 3 cafeterias with the capacity to feed 3,000 people 3 meals per day. They can produce several thousand gallons of fresh water from seawater each day, and they carry half a dozen helicopters for use in transporting victims and injured to and from their deck. We have 11 such ships, and just how many does France have?" You could have heard a pin drop. A U.S. Navy admiral was attending a naval conference that included admirals from the U.S., English, Canadian, Australian, and French navies. At a cocktail reception, he found himself standing. Like I said, I get emotional sometimes. With a large group of officers that included personnel from most of these countries. Everyone was chatting away in English as they sipped their drinks. But a French admiral had suddenly complained that, whereas Europeans learn many languages, Americans learn only English. He then asked, why is it that we always have to speak English in these conferences rather than speaking French? Without hesitating, the American admiral replied, "Well, maybe it's because the Brits, Canadians, Aussies, and Americans arranged it so you wouldn't have to speak German." Yeah, you could have heard a pin drop. This last one is so appropriate. Because again, while we are allies, we're looked down on. And wouldn't the market suddenly dry up if we didn't allow this year's Beaujolais on our shores? At any rate, Robert Whiting, an elderly gentleman of 83, arrived in Paris by plane. At French customs, he took a few minutes to locate his passport in his carry-on. "You have been to France before, monsieur?" the customs officer asked sarcastically. Mr. Whiting admitted he had been to France previously. "Then you should know enough to have your passport ready." The American said, "The last time I was here, I didn't have to show it." "Impossible," was the reply. "Americans always have to show your passports on arrival in France." The American senior gave the Frenchman a long, hard look. Then he quietly explained, "Well, when I came ashore at Omaha Beach on D-Day in 1944 to help liberate this country, I couldn't find a single Frenchman to show a passport to." You know, you could have heard a pin drop. I'm not real proud anymore of our political leaders or our business leaders, but I'm proud of us, the American people. You know, we do these things because we care. Not because this leader or that leader says we ought to care, but because we do. I'm Dwight Schmuck. That's part 2 of today's Schmuck Look. Peace, folks.